So performing an in situ cell-based media exchange is one of the easiest ways to actually remove a lot of waste and add fresh media without doing any dilutions to your culture. This process really only matters for aggregates and microcarrier-based culture, and even then, it may not account for, or it may not be required in those kinds of bioprocesses as well. So we're going to talk about the general steps that are going to go into this, and it's going to be settle, remove, and add, and that's it. So some things to consider on whether or not you actually want to go on with doing a media exchange in your system is the cost of the reagents, recommendations from the media supplier or your supplement supplier, and then last but most importantly is going to be the growth kinetics of your cells. So if it's not really required, sometimes you don't need to do it, but if you can see a real dip in your culture, you should probably go forward with it. So one of the most important things to consider for your in situ media exchange is going to be the settle time. The major differences are going to be the type of culture, so in this case aggregate versus microcarrier, or the size of the particles you have. So if it's early stage or late stage. Um, the aggregate-based cultures tend to be a little more sensitive. They'll start to stick to each other if they're sitting on top of each other for too long. So you really want to have a nice short settle phase. Microcarriers are a little hardier, so you can kind of get away with a longer settle phase. The duration of your culture also is going to have a big impact. So you probably wouldn't want to do a media exchange on like day one because your particles are going to be so small that it's going to take a really long time to settle those out. And then as you go later in the stages, you're going to have bigger particles that are going to settle faster, and then you'll be able to aspirate them off the top. So when you're settling things out, the important stuff is going to be the cells, the healthy stuff essentially. Those are going to be usually your aggregates or your bigger clusters. And all the stuff that's floating and or doesn't really settle after a decent amount of time, sometimes you just have to remove that. That could be dead cells, extra protein, just things that probably should get removed at the end of the day. So you're going to want to make sure that you're not waiting too long because you're going to impact the important stuff just to save a little bit of things that may end up being waste in the end anyways. So here I have the mini vessel that we're going to do our example media exchange with. This is sitting at a 500 mil working volume, and we're going to perform a 50% media exchange. So that's going to be 250 mils out, 250 mils in. I've already done the first step. So I took this vessel off of its base inside the incubator, and I let it settle for a few minutes in its controlled condition. So I kind of wanted to maintain the temperature as long as I could during that settle phase. And we can see here I've got a mostly clarified top and some aggregates on the bottom here, or in this case my microcarriers on the bottom here. So I'm going to be able to aspirate everything that I need to. So let's go ahead and get that started. Okay. So I'm going to want to make sure to submerge my serological. I don't want to go too far down in case I'm still settling at this phase because I just need to make sure I remove only the media portion. But any of the smaller aggregates or particles that are floating should get removed anyways. We don't want to wait too long. As we said earlier, some things were meant to be removed. So I stopped a little bit early before I removed my full 250 because I'm getting pretty close to the wheel. So when you expose the wheel, it has a tendency to start rotating. So what I would recommend be done at this point when I'm going to do my final aspiration is actually put your thumb and your index finger on the opposite sides of the wheel pin, and if you gently press, that will actually prevent the wheel from moving. So that's going to allow me to get a good angle in there to remove more supernatant as needed. So if I was doing a higher percentage than 50, like let's say 80, and I had to get my media down to here, I want to be able to put my serological pipette through the wheel without hitting it and resuspending all my material on the bottom. So let's go ahead and finish that up. And I'm also going at it with a slightly thinner gauged serological. So originally I was using a 50 ml pipette, and now I'm going to use a 25 ml just so I can get in through the wheel there. So it's just a gentle squeeze. You don't have to crush this thing. I'm just going to cap this so I can prep the second half of this process where I'm going to add the media back in.